Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, the NFL has decided to make a change to their late season scheduling. This is not a surprise. I did a video earlier today predicting that they would flex the Falcons-Commanders game in Week 17 to Sunday Night Football. It makes too much sense. One, they left 5 games, and I went over this morning, so I won't really, that's the reason I did it, because I didn't want to spend too much time on that necessarily on this particular program. But they left 5 games available for flex scheduling late in the season. We were one of those 5 games, right? When the schedule came out, it could either be Saturday or Sunday. And you look at those 5 games, and there's not a game that is even remotely close to the level of importance that the Falcons-Commanders game could potentially have in Week 17. Also, and I think this is really big too, and this can't be lost on you, Jaden Daniels has not had a Sunday night game. He has not had an opportunity to introduce himself to the nation on the biggest stage that the NFL has. He's been on Thursday night. He's been on Monday night. He lit it up on Monday night. Not so much on Thursday night against the Eagles, but this is his opportunity to once and for all stake his claim as the Offensive Rookie of the Year, make a statement, and potentially punch the Commanders' ticket to the postseason all in one fell swoop. He is a superstar. He is a superstar. He's one of them ones. And the league understands the importance of its quarterbacks and them being the face of not just their franchises, but the face of the league. And he is going to be in the same vein with Mahomes and Allen and Jackson and Burrow. And we're going to have 5 primetime games next year, folks. Like, this is what happens when you have one of them ones. You ascend and you start to become in demand. And that's what we have in JD5. And so I'm not surprised that they want to expose him to a national audience on the biggest stage that the NFL has. He hasn't been in this opportunity, in this limelight, on this stage this season. And what time than the present, right? You know, no better time than now to give him that chance to showcase what he can do. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity. But, you know, I'm fixated on Week 16 in Philadelphia. So it's hard for me to really look ahead to Week 17. But I saw the opportunity being presented when the Falcons won. Had they lost to Vegas on Monday, I don't think this game gets flexed into Sunday night. It's probably going to be Saturday night instead. But being that they won, the assumption is that they'll win again against the Giants in week number 16. That will set up a massive matchup with essentially a playoff spot on the line. You know, Commanders can essentially punch their ticket to the postseason with a win next week, whether they win or not against Philadelphia. You win against Philadelphia, you eliminate a number of teams in a number of scenarios by getting to 10 a week before that game. But you could still, you know, lose to Atlanta and then lose to Dallas and still not make the playoffs if Atlanta beats you and they win out. So, again, nothing is guaranteed. You have to beat Atlanta, but I'm trying to win every single game. So, right now, Atlanta's on the back burner. I'm fixated on splitting the season series with Philadelphia, and I expect us to win that game, okay? I'm looking at the Eagles, and I finally had a chance to watch their game, and they played well. But again, I didn't see anything that should scare any of us. I watched that entire game, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to catch some flack for this. And some of the fans of this team are probably going to beat me up for this. But we're a better defense than the Pittsburgh Steelers. The only thing we don't do better than them is stop the run. They didn't tackle well in that game. They can't cover at all. Jalen Hurts played well, but they were all easy throws. A lot of them check downs, guys breaking tackles. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell on a 3rd and 5, easy tackle out in space. He spins on a guy, makes a miss and picks up like 12, 13 yards. A 3rd and 9 check down for 2 yards, and the Steelers can't tackle Kenneth Gainwell again, and he gets inside. Like, that shit ain't happening against us. Let me just tell you right now. One thing we are doing is we're tackling, all right? And we're covering better, and we can cover better. Like, the Steelers don't have a corner. You say what you want. You say what you want about, our defense. We don't give up a lot of shit till it gets to the fourth quarter, right? But you say what you want about our defense. You talk as much shit as you want. The numbers are what they are, and we've seen it. We've gone through the eye test with this defense. We know it's not an elite group. But I can tell you what they're not. They're no pushover. I can tell you that much. I've watched the Steelers give up 38 points to the Bengals, right? And I know that offense is dynamic. But that's family business. You shouldn't be giving up 30 whatever points to a family member. You shouldn't be doing that. Those games are supposed to be tight, right? I watched Jameis Winston carve them up. Like, that's not a great Steelers defense. They got a great Hall of Fame player in TJ Watt, and probably another Hall of Fame player in Cam Hayward. They stopped the run, but you can throw the football on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've watched teams do it this season. Hell, we did it this season, right? And we should have scored 40 on those boys. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, we didn't. Bottom line is, I like our chances. But that's not saying anything. You already know how I feel. And I think this team is playing the type of football that lends itself to being able to show up, show out, and do something that the Eagles need to have done, which is their streak broken. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody got to do it. They got a winning streak, man. Somebody got to break it. Why not us? They don't call us the streak breakers for nothing. Somebody got to do it. But more importantly, we'll talk about the Eagles all week. We got plenty of time to do that. Let's take a look at the playoff picture as we usually do here on Tuesdays. And man, isn't this fun? Isn't this exciting? Right? Isn't this much better than talking about the alternative, which is the draft and strength of schedule? Isn't this fun? Yeah, I'm enjoying myself. But I want so much more, right? I want the postseason. I want to do damage when we get there, but you got to get there first, right? So this is how you get there. So these are the updated standings. The Bucks have ascended all the way to the 3 spot in the postseason. As you can see, the Seahawks are out of the postseason altogether with their loss on Sunday versus the Green Bay Packers. What you don't see listed here are the 5th seeded Minnesota Vikings. They've already clinched. So these are all the teams that have not clinched the playoff spot on the left. On the right are the teams still in the hunt. So Tampa Bay is in the midst of a divisional fight with the Atlanta Falcons. They can't afford to lose. So they've got the Cowboys this week. Then they finish up the season at home against the Saints. So they can't afford to lose any games because, let's see, they got the Cowboys. Who do they have after that? They got another game. And then I want to say they got 2 division games to finish up. So it's the Cowboys, then the Panthers at home. And then I think they go on the road to finish up against, they're home. I think 2 games in a row at home to finish up in the division, Panthers and then Saints, if I'm not mistaken. So they could lose any one of those games. Obviously, family business is family business. But they're in the driver's seat. They win out, they win the division. They lose a game, right? And the Falcons go and run the table, then the Falcons would win the division at 10-7. Because remember, all the Falcons have to do is finish tied with Tampa Bay. They swept them in the season series. And if the Falcons win out, it would mean that they would have finished with a 5-1 record in the division. So they'd have a better division record. They've already swept Tampa Bay, et cetera, et cetera. So they own all the tiebreakers between the 2 teams. So the Bucks can't afford to lose. But we'll see what they ultimately do. They're not of any real issue to us. They're not of any real concern to us because they're either getting in as a division winner, or they're probably not getting in at all. Basically with where they are. If they lose a game, and they again, like I've said this before, if we finish 10-6, they finish 10-7. Excuse me. They own the tiebreaker over us. So, assuming that the Falcons are able to, somehow come back, win that division from them. But again, that's not our concern. Our concern is, winning the games that are in front of us. Again, I've said the magic number is 10. Here's why I say that. But again, the real goal is 11 because 10 can still get you out of the postseason. But 10 eliminates a lot of scenarios, which is why I've been saying this over and over again. 10 is the magic number because you get to 10, you're probably getting in, more likely than not, right? So let's talk about everything real quick. So the Bucks are at 3 at 8-6. The Rams are now in the 4 hole. They've overtaken Seattle because they beat them earlier this season in Seattle. Those two teams play the final week of the season. The Rams have a very advantageous schedule down the stretch. They play the Jets this week. Then they go home against Arizona and then finish up at home versus Seattle. So they're in the driver's seat. All they have to do is win out. And even if they lose a game and they slip up here before they get to Seattle, they still play them in the final week of the season. As long as they don't lose the next 2 games, as long as they're just 1 game back of Seattle heading into that final game, they still control the outcome of their season by, being able to beat them, sweep that season series, and they would win the division. So the Rams are in a great place right now. And with the Geno Smith injury, don't know the severity of it right now, but with that injury, it feels like Seattle is on the brink of kind of teetering and sputtering out of control here. We'll see what happens with them with that injury and if they can get Sam Howell up to speed and play much better than he showcased on Sunday night versus the Green Bay Packers. Speaking of the Packers, they're essentially in. As you can see, their probability right now is 99%. They're pretty much a shoe-in for the postseason because they got to that magic number that I talked about, 10. But not only did they get to 10, they got to it with 3 games remaining, which means they're more likely than not going to win another game somewhere along the way, which is why they haven't clinched technically, but an 11th win will absolutely clinch a playoff berth for them. All they have to do is win on Monday night versus New Orleans, which we just played New Orleans. We've seen the state that they're in. There's no way the Packers aren't going home and beating the New Orleans Saints. So they're going to clinch a playoff berth here next week. So then there's the matter of our beloved Washington Commanders sitting there at 9-5. Avoided disaster on Sunday with the 20-19 victory. You see our odds have decreased from the 80, I think it was 83% or 80% last week. I think it was 80% last week to 78. Why did it decrease? Because Atlanta won, right? Because Atlanta now poses a serious threat to us. If, we don't beat them in week 17, everything could go awry for us. But here's the simplest way I can explain this to you. You beat Philadelphia this week, right? Or just get to 10 wins between this week or next week. Let's just go with the assumption, because I like speaking things into existence. Let's go with the example of we beat Philadelphia on Sunday. Get to 10-5 on the season, okay? What you've effectively done is you've eliminated the Arizona Cardinals from playoff contention. They're eliminated because they can't catch the Packers, right? Packers already at 10 wins. They don't own any tiebreakers over Green Bay. So they can't catch the Packers, right? Packers win on Monday. They're already in anyway. The Vikings have already clinched the playoff berth, so that wild card is already removed off the table, whether they have it or not. Whether that wild card goes to the Detroit or Minnesota, it's already locked up, right? Packers are going to lock up their wild card spot, and so the only wild card left is the Washington Commanders spot at number 7. But if we get to 10, as you can see, the Cardinals already have 7 losses, so the max that they can get to this season is 10. Well, we beat them head-to-head, so they're eliminated if we get to 10 wins. They can't pass us, which they would have to because we own the tiebreaker, so they're eliminated, which is why I keep telling you 10 is the magic number because so much is dictated by getting to 10. So you would eliminate Arizona with your 10th win of the season, right? Getting to 10 with 2 games remaining is big because why? Seattle, right? and the Rams, look at their record. They play each other. Keep that in mind. They can't, one of them can't get to 11, right? You follow me here? Right? 3 games left. One is against each other. Someone has to lose that game. Now, technically speaking, they could tie in that last game and finish percentage points ahead of us with 10 wins, right? That's a realistic possibility, but the likelihood is someone's going to win, someone's going to lose that game. We've seen that happen before, though, where we got to that week 18 game. I believe it was 2 years ago, Chargers, Raiders, and it could have ended up in a tie. And the Chargers wanted to be aggressive. The Raiders were cool with the tie. Chargers wanted to be aggressive. Raiders said, okay, bet. We'll beat your ass. And they beat them. And so both of them would have gotten into the playoffs. I think the Chargers ended up missing the playoffs that year. That feels like a little bit further back because the Raiders made the playoffs that year. That had to be 2021, I guess. Whatever year Gruden got fired, that Rich Bisaccia took over. It had to be 2022 because that's the year the Bengals won the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was 2022. Anyway, so we have seen some crazy shit happen in the final week of the season. I don't anticipate that happening. So basically what I'm saying to you is, even if the Rams win their next 2 games, even if the Seahawks win their next 2 games, they'll both go into that final game at 10-6. Somebody's got to lose that final game. They don't have to, but somebody's going to lose that final game of the season, right? And when that happens, someone's going to be 10-7. We own the tiebreaker over both the Rams and the Seahawks if we finish tied with either one of them. So what I'm essentially explaining to you is 10 is the number that's going to put you in a position to make it into the postseason if you beat Atlanta. And so this is where things get interesting, is because Atlanta's the only team that could prevent us from making the postseason with 10 wins. And simply put, they have a soft schedule. It doesn't get much softer than the schedule they have remaining. They just played the Raiders last night. If they were playing any team with any respect for themselves down the stretch, they would probably lose. But they're not. They're playing teams that are literally tanking for a quarterback. Like the Raiders and the Giants are the definition of, we don't want to win. We need a quarterback. And a win doesn't help us down the stretch. A meaningless win in December does not help us. So if they were playing the Jags or the Jets or some team, or even the Panthers, which they do play the Panthers in the final week of the season, that could be a dangerous game, right? But we'll see what kind of football they're playing in. But that shouldn't matter, because, again, the key is put yourself in a position where you don't have to rely on anybody else to do anything. So if you beat Philadelphia, you get to 10-5. Now that game against Atlanta doesn't have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Like, that game does not carry the same magnitude as it would have if you were to lose to Philadelphia, go into that game at 9-6. Falcons, assuming they beat the Giants, which none of us feel like they're not going to win that game, they get to 8-7. And now all of a sudden, that game is essentially for a playoff spot, because if they come into Northwest and beat us, we're both going to leave that game at 9-7. And now all they got to do is go next week and beat Carolina at home, and they're in the playoffs. Meanwhile, if we lose that game, right, having lost the week before against Philadelphia, now we can beat Dallas, get to 10-7. But if they win and get to 10-7, they beat us head-to-head, they own the tiebreaker. So they're the only team that could stop us from getting in at 10. But if we beat Philadelphia this week, get to 10-5, lose to them next week, then all we got to do is beat Dallas in week 18 again. I say only as if that's an easy feat for us. Clearly, we struggled with that the first time around, but I like our chances against them the second time around, just like I do the Eagles as well. So all we got to do is beat Dallas in week 18, and we still control the outcome of our season, is essentially what I'm telling you. If we beat Philadelphia, getting to 10 is the magic number to set off a chain of events. But if you don't beat Philadelphia and you beat Atlanta, you're in the playoffs. So what I'm essentially telling you is, next week's game has a chance to be the season. Now, you could lose to Philadelphia, you could lose to Atlanta, then beat Dallas, and Atlanta could lose to the Panthers in week 18, and you could still get in the playoffs. But You feel like shit if that, I mean, look, I just want in. I don't really give a shit how it happens, but you'd feel like shit because you had everything you wanted in front of you and you didn't take care of business. So the name of the game is take care of your shit. Handle yours, right? Handle yours. You take care of business, you're in the playoffs, right? Simple as that. There is no instance, none whatsoever, where Washington misses the playoffs with 11 wins. So theoretically speaking, technically speaking, 11 wins, we're definitely in. Without any equivocations. You get to 11, it's a done deal. There's no way we can miss the playoffs at 11 wins. Rams can't beat us in a tiebreaker. Seahawks can't beat us in a tiebreaker. Falcons can't get to 11 wins. So there is no plausible scenario in which we miss the playoffs with 11 wins. So you got 3 games to win 2 of them. Take care of business. I want to win all 3 of them. I'm greedy, but that's just me, right? I want to go in as one of the hottest teams in the playoffs, and I want to be going in ready to wreck shit. So I'm trying to win all 3 of these hoes, right? I want to go in riding a 5-game heater. Like, oh shit, who wants to play them? Nobody. That's what I'm trying to do. But it's one at a time, right? And the next one up on the docket is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I want this one bad. Real bad. Right? So we'll talk more about that, but this is where we sit. Everything is in front of us, and we know exactly what needs to be done. We know exactly what needs to be done. But missing the playoffs is a real thing. Like, you don't take care of business these next 2 weeks, you've put yourself in a pretty precarious position. Again, I hate to say this, but if we can only get one of the next 2 games, the one we have to have is against Atlanta. I want both of them. I want both of them. And if you tell me, because it's going to be a lot harder, right? Like, you got to sweat it out more doing it the other way. But if you gave me a choice, which again, I'm taking them one at a time, but if you gave me a choice and shoot me, all right, I'm a fan and I'm all about the division and, you know, I'm ready to start making headway in the division. If you gave me a choice and this is the path less chosen, you don't want to go this route because it's going to force you to have to go to week 18 more likely than not to get it done. But if you gave me an option and you said, hey, you could clinch in week 17 versus Atlanta, beat Philadelphia in week 16 and, you know, and beat Atlanta, then lose to Dallas in week 18. I might just take that one, honestly speaking, but I don't want to get swept by Dallas. Not in a year where they suck ass, right? Or you lose to Philadelphia, but you beat Atlanta and you clinch that way in week 17. Or you gave me the option of, no, you lose to Atlanta in week 17, but you beat Dallas and Philadelphia. I take that one. But it's going to force you to have to go to Dallas and have your season on the line in week 18 on the road against the Cowboys. I really would prefer to be not in that position, right? I don't want that game to be for, you know, a playoff spot. I like to have our shit sewn up before then, if at all possible. But again, take care of business this week against Philadelphia. You eliminate Seattle, L.A., and Arizona all in one fell swoop if you beat Philadelphia this week. Then the only team standing in your way of a playoff spot is the Atlanta Falcons. And we play them. We play them. We host them on Sunday Night Football. What better way to clinch a playoff spot than to tell the team that's trying to take the shit from your grasp, get the hell out of here. And take our former quarterback with you. That's a revenge game for us. We haven't beaten Kirk Cousins since he's left here. It's time to end that shit. We've been streak breakers all year. It's time to break that shit too. But to hell with that. We got plenty of time to get to that one. let's focus on this week, right? So we transitioned to in other news, and DQ's presser. I talked about it earlier on the show that I did. I wanted to knock out a few talking points from that, so I didn't spend too much time on it. But it was 24 minutes, so there was a lot to discuss there. So I want to talk about some of the other things he talked about. Before we do that, there were some roster moves made today. I just want to talk about them very briefly. Let me say this first. I think this was just me, because y'all be on this shit. Y'all be on it probably a lot, more so than myself. Did y'all know that they had officially moved Kaz Allen to running back? Y'all knew that was a thing? Leave it in the comment section. I didn't. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know that they officially made the switch to him, because I didn't know until DQ talked about, like, first of all, Ben Standing had brought it up like he was leaving the building, with crutches and a soft cast on or whatever, last week. And somebody asked him about Kaz Allen. He's like, yeah, he injured himself, and that's going to stop him from being brought up, and yada, yada, yada. And then somebody asked a follow-up question, and he was like, yeah, Kaz would have been our, dynamic, scat back running back since Austin Eckler is out. And I'm like, running back? What do you mean running back? See, of course, then I went to the team website and I scrolled down and I looked at his designation, and sure enough, he's listed as a running back. I was like, huh, interesting. I like it. He's definitely not a receiver. And, when he was at his best in college, he was a gadget guy, but a lot of it came out of the backfield. I like it. I like it a lot. Maybe, now I don't like it enough for them to not draft a running back next year with some speed and some giddy up and some elusiveness. Man, I tell you, I'm over here. Jesus would be disappointed in me right now, because I am committing a sin, one of the deadly sins, because I am over here just as envious, sitting here watching the James Cooks of the world, the Bucky Irvings, and the Jahmyr Gibbses, and saying, damn, I want one of those. I want one of those bad. Like, damn, those are nice. Those are really nice. We need one of those in the worst way. X cool. Kaz Allen is cool. We need one of them shits, right? But it's cool to know that Kaz Allen is, trying to convert over to running back. They like him. But again, I don't like his ass enough to stop me from being in a position to get one of these difference-making backs to pair with Brian Robinson Jr. I don't like his ass that much. But it would have been cool to see him get an opportunity this year. That's not going to happen now. He's been placed on IR. His season is done. This is in conjunction with Zach Ertz's concussion. So they're going to have to elevate, because Colson Yankoff is still on IR. They're going to have to elevate Cole Turner, more likely than not, from the practice squad to give them 3 tight ends on Sunday versus the Eagles. So they need another tight end on the practice squad. So they signed Tyree Jackson, former quarterback, turned tight end, was with the Eagles for a little bit. Really athletically gifted guy, right? Reminds me a lot of when we had Amani Rodgers, like really super athletic dude that was a former quarterback that made the transition to tight end. But he hasn't been in an NFL camp or team this season, so he's not in a position to help us at all. This is just another body to have in the event that something happens. You want to have a guy already in your program, have him already working out, getting him conditioned, get him where you need him to be, just in the event that you have to pull him up at some point. He's a break in case of an emergency tight end, but he should never see the field for this team. And again, Ertz isn't hurt for a very long time. In my mind's eye, he'll be back next week against Atlanta on Sunday Night Football. I'm just thinking this is a 1-week deal. Now, it could be more severe, and maybe this move is a sign that they may be a little bit more concerned with Ertz than I'm giving it, credit for and credence to. But in my mind's eye, Chin and Ertz will be out this week, and I expect both of them back next week against the Atlanta Falcons. So they did make that move. Kaz Allen being removed off the practice squad, put on IR to make a roster space on the practice squad to allow Tyree Jackson to be added to that mix. So that was done today. Now, DQ's presser from yesterday. Most of you have had a chance to listen to it in its entirety now. My bad for not vocalizing how you could listen to it. I pinned that comment to the comment section of that video because it was a lot. Like I so a lot of people like it was on the mobile app. I don't have the mobile app. That like everything that's on that mobile app for the most part I can access through the website. So I'm not on my phone accessing Commander's content a lot of times. I usually do it on my computer. So because I'm always on my computer. Like I'm literally, my office is my computers and I'm always on my computer. So unless I'm on the go, my phone isn't something that I use a ton unless I'm on like social media or something. So I don't have the mobile app. So I missed out on that. But for those of us who don't have the Commander's mobile app, you can still access it. And I left that down in the comment section and I pinned it to the top of that video that I put out earlier today. So I hope most of you have had a chance to digest the 24-minute presser that he had yesterday. So there were a number of things he talked about. And one of the things that I was really pleased to hear him discuss was the sacks that were taken. And he was like, you know, some of these we got to throw away, right? And so that means they've discussed this with him. And because there was a point in the conversations that we were having amongst each other where we weren't sure if this had been discussed to him or not. Like it could have not come up where they could have just been like, you know, hey, good job at eluding the pressure. You know, get what you can get out of bounds. And they may not have said, hey, just throw it away, bro. But he ran out of bounds twice. DQ was like, he ran out of bounds twice and he should have checked it down on another one. And I know the one he's talking about. It's the Chase Young sack, right? Not the second one where he should have just stepped up. The first one, you got the running back right in the flats. And it's one-on-one. Just toss it out there and see if he can make somebody miss and let's go to work, right? And instead he tried to run up and he got sacked by Chase Young. So I knew exactly what he was referring to. He said he ran out of bounds twice, which we all know happened. So that accounts for 3 of those sacks right there of the 8 sacks on Sunday. So he's like, yeah, those are just throwaways. He needs to throw that away. So it was good to hear him say that. But he said the evolution of Jaden in the pocket is fun to watch. And we want him to continue to extend plays, which, look, you're not going to get me to complain about him taking sacks, being a playmaker. It's the same shit I said about Sam Howell last year. I don't want to hear you bitching and complaining about sacks if it's going to take away from his ability to create. And Sam Howell early last season was a creator. They started bitching about the amount of sacks he was taking. Get the ball out of your hands, you know, get rid of it. And you saw what that did to his psyche. I don't want to take away his creativeness. It's the same thing I've said about Caleb Williams. Like, there's a fine line that you walk when you're in the NFL because sacks are debilitating, right? Which is why people don't want to see them being taken. These sacks that Jaden's taking aren't the Sam Howell, Caleb Williams variety where you're running backwards 12 to 14 yards and getting sacked. A lot of his sacks are right around the line of scrimmage, right? Where he steps up and he's trying to run and somebody grabs him 2 yards short of the line of scrimmage, right? Rarely does he take a 12 to 14 yard sack. The only time those happen is when he drops back too far and then he tries to escape out the back door. Somebody loops around from the backside. The tackle thinks he's doing a good job of keeping the integrity of the pocket by pushing the guy up the field. Well, Jaden bails out of the back door, and now that guy's right in the sight of Jaden. Jaden doesn't know he's coming, like the Tampa Bay game, for instance, and or even the Eagles game, and he gets sacked from behind. Those are the only times where he gets sacked for a big yardage lost. Or lost yardage. That's what I was trying to say. It's the only time he gets sacked for big lost yardage. Most of his sacks, 2 yards, 3 yards, right around, like he's running towards the line of scrimmage and he just doesn't make it, right? I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with him extending plays. That's part of who he is. I want him to be more dynamic as a passer. Like, I'm watching Josh Allen, and again, you got to keep in mind that he's a rookie. Like, we're watching some of the best quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson. These guys have been in the league 6, 7 years. So they've gone through the things that Jaden is currently going through. He's ahead of schedule. He's way ahead of where Josh Allen was in his rookie season. He's way ahead of where Lamar Jackson, any of these quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, any of those guys that we talk about being in that group of elite quarterbacks, those one of them ones, as I like to call them, he's way ahead of those guys where they were in their rookie seasons. It's not even remotely close. So, we want more from him, but it's almost unfair, the things that we're asking of him, because he's so ahead of schedule. And that's the thing, is to whom much is given, much is expected. He's shown us that he's so talented that we've skipped steps with him. Like, now we expect him to all of a sudden play breaks down, don't run out of bounds, look 40 yards down the field and make a play. And that's not, to me, that's not reasonable to ask of a rookie quarterback in his first year. To ask him to be mentally aware enough to say, nope, not going to run, not going to take off and use my God-given ability. I'm going to look down the field, extend. And like that is a learned trait over time. Josh Allen wasn't doing that early in his career. He was just taking off and running, right? He's just taking off and running. Now he's matured and advanced to the point now where, hey, my legs are cool and I'll use them when I need them. But if I can throw this bitch 40 yards down the field because they're worried about me taking off, I'm going to do that, right? Jaden will get there eventually. But it's fun to watch him evolve in the pocket. Some of the throws on Sunday, whoa, right? Whoa. It was fun to watch. And so he talked about Jaden's, growth in the pocket and, the throws that he was making. I talked about him praising the receivers on Sunday. He talked about wanting more out of the run game, and he's not wrong for that. It just felt like a weird game from a run game standpoint. We didn't feel ever in sync in the run game. Just felt like we were running the ball to run the ball, which I'm a fan of, because running the ball, like, we've had games this season where the run wasn't super effective. Go see the Cincinnati Bengals game. But you were able to take vertical shots because you continued to run the football. So that opened up opportunities. That's what happened against the Saints. Brian Robinson Jr. had 21 carries for 65 yards. That's not a good game. But you know what it does do? 21 carries forces them to respect the run. So now they have to suck up. Now you get those one-on-one looks on the outside. And when those opportunities present themselves, you have to hit them. And we didn't, but they were there because we were consistent in running the football, which I think is key for us. But he wanted more effectiveness, which I do too, right? You need to be more effective in the run game. You need to be in positions. I'm surprised that we were able to go 9 of 17 on third downs. And DQ spoke about the effectiveness on third downs. He was like, we had a lot of third downs, which we did. 17 is a lot of third downs. But to convert 9 of them with the lack of assistance from the run game and the penalties, don't forget about those that were added into the mix. We converted a number of third downs that we had to overcome first and second and 20s and second and 18s because of penalties. And we overcame those and still converted on third down. A lot of this being done without the aid of the run game. So hats off to the offense for finding ways to create in those situations. And DQ talked about that. It's not easy to go and have 17 third downs and convert at the rate that we did. But, again, that's a testament to, what we were able to do in that game. He talked about the penalties, and he said, look, we got to clean them up. He said, Diami had a big catch to put us in the low red zone, and that was negated via penalty. And when you're in that 4-minute offense trying to essentially bleed clock, run out the clock and win the game on offense, you can't have those penalties. And he's right. I mean, you don't have that penalty, the game's pretty much over. Because even if New Orleans is able to get the ball back, we were in chip shot field goal range. That'll put you up 10 in that spot, and now the game's done, right? So even if they were to get the ball back, the game would have been done, and we wouldn't have been going through all of that. More likely than not, we'd have been able to run the clock out. We wouldn't even have had to attempt a field goal. But because we had that penalty, that really hurt us. So he talked about the penalties. He talked about, the combative penalties. He's talked about this all year. Like, you can live with combative penalties. That includes the Benjamin St. Juice hands to the face penalty, but that's not necessary, right? And he's like, the combative ones you get, it's the pre and the post snap penalties. After the play is done, you're jawing with somebody, you mush them in their face and you get a flag. Like, he's like, I can't live with that shit. Lining up incorrectly, or the penalty that negated the OZ touchdown. That's the shit you can't have, right? Where OZ got too excited, moved prematurely, and Diami came in motion and 2 guys were moving and didn't get set. And so now you got a penalty. And now you move back 5 yards. Luckily enough for us, Jaden was able to make something happen because Sam Cosme then had a penalty. Like, this is the shit we can't do, right? And so he talked about penalties, especially on the defensive side. You know, he said we had 2 UNRs, which are unnecessary roughness penalties, which were garbage. And he went all the way up into the line of calling them garbage without calling them. And he took the low road because he's not trying to get fined. So he pretty much said, you know, we got to adjust, but you know, he said that's on the officials. Like, we can't worry about, you know, how they see it. We just got to do the best job that we can of not putting them in a position to be able to throw the flag. But so he talked about lowering the strike zone and things of that nature. But those were good hits, man. Dante Fowler Jr. can't do anything more. He on one play, he didn't even go to the ground. He stopped because he knew if he went to the ground, they probably was gonna throw the flag, and he still threw the damn flag. Like, you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I would tell Dante, just do what you've been doing, bro. Don't stop. The last thing we want him to do is suffer from Chase Young syndrome, where you start pushing guys and they don't fall down and they start making plays because you're scared to hit them. Like, that's what you don't want. Keep doing you, bro. Like, those were good hits. Those were good hits. He talked about, you know, tale of 2 halves. He's like, the first half is exactly what you want. Second half, not so much. But he said, you know, those are good lessons learned. Like, you got to be able to go through that fire to understand what it's going to take to win this time of the year, right? You're in December. It's tough. We're going to be playing in the elements here shortly. You know, the next 2 weeks are at home. It's going to be cold. The weather could be inclement. We'll see. But, you know, you got to find a way to get it done. And he said, we can sit here and be bitching about the calls and the officiating, bitching about this didn't go our way, that didn't go our way. But he said, I love this group because instead of bitching about it, I'd rather roll with a crew that's going to find a way to get it done. And that's what we did, right? And I love that answer. Like, that's the mindset you got to have. Let us as fans bitch about the shit. You know, I'm not a big bitcher. I always tell y'all, like, I don't want to hear no shit about the officials, even though that shit was egregious. This is one of those games I'm like, nah. You talk your shit about the officials because they tried to cost us the game. We tried to give them an opportunity to cost us the game, and they said, oh, don't mind if I do. Like, we should have put the shit away. And I like to focus on that more so than the officiating. A lot of y'all want to focus on the officials. I'm like, nah. F that, because officials going to be officials. It's just like boxing, and I told you that already. It's just like boxing. Don't allow the judges to impact the fight. Like, if you want to ensure that you win, knock his ass out. Because if you leave it up to the judges, you don't know what the hell they looking at. So knock his ass out. Same thing here. You don't know what the hell the officials are going to do. So instead, knock their ass out. And we had ample opportunities to put the Saints on their ass and not let them get up. And we still gave them opportunities. Opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And now you allowed the officials to inject themselves in that football game, and it almost cost us. But DQ was like, we ain't worried about that. I love that this crew ain't worried about that. We going to get back in there, and we going to fight, and we going to finish the job. And that's what they did. So, yeah, he talked about that. And he talked about a lot of good stuff. It's a really good presser. If you haven't given it a listen, it's a really good press conference. But this is a big week. Can't wait to hear him speak on Wednesday along with Jaden. The beauty of this second game against Philadelphia is we've seen them once now. We saw what they did the first time. We got a feel for them. And we weren't ourselves then, right? Short week, banged up, tired. We're a different team then. We're a different team now. We got Marshawn Lattimore. We're playing with a lot more confidence. Like, I know that the finish of the game wasn't great. Somebody said something funny in the comment section of one of the videos that I posted earlier in the week where they said, hey, if all of our games were 3 quarters, we'd be the best team in the league. They're not wrong, right? The fourth quarter is not our friend. That's got to change at some point. And maybe that doesn't change this year. But I like the way we're playing football. Because all I've ever, if you've been watching me for any amount of years, you always know that my thing is, hey, just get me to the fourth quarter with a chance. Show me a game this season where the Commanders didn't have a chance in the fourth quarter. I'll wait. Because we were even in the game against Tampa in week 1 in the fourth quarter. Got away from us in the fourth quarter. But we were in the game. Show me a game where the Commanders weren't in it in the fourth quarter. Now, I don't know if we ever possessed the football in that week 1 contest versus Tampa Bay with a chance to tie or take the lead. But just about every other game this season, we've had the football with a chance to tie or take the lead if we weren't already in the lead in the fourth quarter. Probably Baltimore is the only other one where we didn't have a chance. We never got the football back with a chance to take the lead or tie the game up. They kept us at bay. But we had a chance. We had our shot. The officials threw a bad flag, but we couldn't get a stop that day. That was our biggest issue. We couldn't get a stop. But we were in that game in the fourth quarter. You can't find one. We're as scrappy and competitive a team as you will find in the NFL. I love that about this group. Even when shit looks bleak, we fight to the very bitter end. We're never out of a game. When you got a guy like Five, you're never out of it. If you've learned nothing else this year, that should be one of your biggest takeaways is Five gives us a chance no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the challenges that lie ahead are, we got one of them ones. That changes everything. Everything. God, it feels good to finally get it right at that position. I feel for teams who, look, we've been there. We were there for over 30 years. So, like, this is deserved. We deserve this. We deserve this. Nobody deserves this more than us. This is going to be a fun finish to the season. I'm looking forward to it. Bart Scott! Can't wait. It's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. Just a quick reminder, we will be live over on the Commanders Kings channel tonight, 8:30 p. Rico, Rio, Ed, and yours truly holding it down as only we can on the Commanders Kings channel. We will be live talking about this Saints game and how we almost did not go marching in against the Saints, but came out of there, big steppers with the win, 9-5. Now you turn your attention to the Philadelphia Eagles and a big, massive matchup at the crib. And so I'm looking forward to chopping it up with the fellas and getting their insight as to, how they are feeling about this upcoming game and also how they were feeling about that Saints game as it unfolded. I also got a funny story to tell y'all about Ed. So we'll do that tonight as well. So, and just another side note, if you're interested, LouieTeeNetwork podcast will follow Commanders Kings live tonight. So 10:30, I'll set it for. We'll break down week number 15, go slate skating, talk about some of the things that have happened around the league. And then we will, get into, turning our attention to kind of week 16 and taking a quick peek-see at that. So with that said, it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. See you next time.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40.